This is the Construction Insiders Podcast. I'm Jessica Busch, bringing you the newest trends and strategies in construction, essential to anyone in the industry. Welcome to the Construction Insiders Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Busch, and today we're going to go into a topic that several of our viewers and listeners have been asking for. We are going to talk about data centers. So today, welcome gentlemen, we have Chris Adams and Jason Tirri. For those listeners that may not be as familiar with you guys and your histories and what you're working on as I am, could you give them a quick intro on who you are and what you're doing?
Yeah, sounds good. So my name is Chris Adams. I'm a managing director with Cumming Group out of the San Francisco office, and I'm our data center lead.
Jason Tirri. I've been with Cumming Group now going on 8 years. I am working as a vice president of project management here in the Northeast, working across several different sectors, and obviously now one of the more prevalent ones, working with Chris and his teams in the data center world.
So speaking about them being hot, why... I mean, we've been talking about data centers for years and years now, but why are they still hot? Why are we still talking about them? How did we get here? Why are we still here?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. So data centers in the last probably 5 to 10 years has just been skyrocketing. The biggest push was cloud. I'm pushing towards that. And that's been supercharged by the pandemic, by the need for inference, and now AI. And with the need for AI, you have the need for new data centers, higher capacity, more density, and people are just trying to play catch up. So it's a bit of a technological race at the moment.
Yeah, we're seeing, if you take a typical decent sized data center that could take 1 to 2 years to build, I mean, technologies and things could change 3 times in that span. So we're just encouraging a lot of our clients, as Chris said, to just be as flexible and adaptable as possible, because we really don't know where the end is yet.
Yeah. But a big portion of that right now, it seems to be this growth of AI and how to move forward in the build environment with that looming and just every day, every minute changing. And
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. The traditional markets are no longer where people are looking. Depending on what the needs are, we could be in any one of 6, 7, 8 different states at any given time, from Ohio to Idaho to Wyoming, Texas, and the traditional markets of New Jersey, Virginia, as Chris mentioned, are pretty much tapped mostly on, the land side and the power side.
So before jumping into geographies, I guess one of my questions too was going to be about the investment side of this. Mm-hmm. So with the explosion of AI and having to continue to adapt and kind of be as nimble as absolutely possible and flexible as possible, where are these investments coming from right now in the space?
So you see it from a couple of different angles. And it depends on sort of the market sector that you're looking at, because you have the traditional hyperscalers providing cloud compute, doing it themselves, etc. They have the capital. That doesn't tend to be over. Yeah. We're seeing a lot of private equity capital coming into the development space. And then you also have traditional enterprise users of, say, financial institutions, healthcare, etc., who are trying to keep their own data sovereignty and adapt for AI. So they're now also getting creative on the financing side. Plus, it is a gold rush. Everyone wants a piece of it. So you're seeing a lot of new people flooding to the market and just trying to capitalize.
Yeah, I would agree. We're seeing it from all different angles. I think on my side, we've gotten a lot more involved. Chris has been working with hyperscalers for years. As you mentioned, we're just seeing a lot more coming in on the private equity side. We have a lot of connections here in this area with many of those firms, asking us really just for help in scaling and really assessing sites and helping them move forward, because it is a race at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So the faster people move and the faster decisions can be made, the more they can get into it.
But
early.
You also want to de-risk as well. So
well, yeah,
that's why we're getting this phone
calls.
calls.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now moving to geographies, you mentioned a few states when we first jumped into this topic. What are we focused on as an industry, or what are people exploring?
I mean, Chris will probably touch upon some of the stuff he's looking at globally. Just here in the States, it's really just a race to power. who can get the power requirements up and running as fast as possible, whether that be from a regulatory side or utility side. It's really just, like I said, the race to whether that's through different types of electricity, natural gas, solar. We're seeing all different kinds of options, but really it's just like I said, power is first and foremost, is the number one concern for all of these data centers going up now.
Yeah, and I think just to go back on the history of it, the original sort of criteria of fiber capacity, population is becoming more and more stretched. You are still seeing booms across certain cities or geographies. Phoenix is still going hot. Atlanta, Chicago, I feel like starting to get tapped out a little bit with Elk Grove. But you are seeing new places pop up. Reno is a great example of that. So yeah, we're seeing it across the board. And then obviously Texas is still.
And traditionally there was a latency component to it where things had to be closer because of the fiber runs. But with the large language models coming on board where you're just training in a bubble, it's becoming less and less of a concern. So the proximity to downtowns or things like that are not as important anymore as they used to be.
So they might not be as important for power reasons, but what are you guys seeing with these, we're talking workforce and supply chain, kind of any of these edge location? How does that playing into this in terms of geography?
Honestly, like a traditional construction project, right? If you build it, they will come. We're having just to adapt and recognize that there is a labor shortage and that people have to pay for it. There is a premium to working in a remote location. But it's the same with equipment supply and the demand there, and people just being proactive, engaging, developing relationships, and being aware that you have to engage early across the board.
Well, and I guess we've seen that in terms of, like, if we're talking about a case study, right? Like in Louisiana, didn't one of our clients have something going on there, and there was concern about the workforce and labor, but
construction companies are getting creative and smart. They're having roving teams now, go across the country. There are multiple websites I know where electricians are telling where the hot spots are, so they can move with where the demand is. So, like I said, there's creativity going on in all different ways to get people what they need, and quite frankly, it's also sparking a reinterest in the trades again. We're seeing a lot of electrician trainings starting to pop back up, and people getting excited about getting into that sector again.
That's interesting. I wouldn't think that would be kind of a domino effect of an industry like this booming.
Yeah, I mean, like Chris said, it's a gold rush.
It's a gold rush. But that leads us back to power constraints. So around the globe, how is that being addressed? I mean, are there different types of energy? We've seen bloom. What's going on with that?
Well, I think globally, everyone's treating it differently, right?
Okay.
Everyone has their own constraints, etc. Ireland basically had a moratorium for a long time now. Singapore is the same. But once you get into the Nordics and they're using sustainability, you have sustainability is a topic, not a source. You have the US market where the grid is struggling, but you're finding bridging solutions. You're finding gas, you're finding bloom cells. There are ways around to play that catch up. But once again, it's the relationships of early engagement with the power utility companies and going from there.
Yeah. And again, same thing with the workforce. People are getting creative.
Yeah.
Instead of, if you need a 100 meg site, instead of trying to get that all at once, they'll phase, 20 megs at a time so that they can get operations up and running and start generating revenue. Chris mentioned natural gas. We're starting to see a lot as a bridging solution to ultimately electricity. Hydrogen is in the background being looked at, and I'm sure we're going to get into nuclear at some point. Which
Just
is
wait.
Yep.
But I suppose the flip side of it is, yes, the capacity demand is driving it, but it's also pushing people to other locations.
Yes.
Right? So that was pushing people to Reno, etc. You're pushing even country-wise. If you look at Europe, it was originally the German markets, Amsterdam, Paris, London, sort of that side of things. Now you're seeing a lot more in Spain, a lot more in Italy. People are just being pushed to where capacity is available, where countries or states are wanting to bring in this sort of trade. Because,
It also brings a lot of money to the local community.
Sure.
it does.
That is the benefit.
It definitely does. And I think the support of local communities, from what I've seen, is being critical from the hyperscale side, from even the development side of how they engage, because there was always a bit of hesitancy.
Well, there's the
pushback.
unknown.
Yes. But they're bringing in labor, they're bringing in money. And then once these things are actually built, they have high-end jobs without the need for a mass headcount. So it actually works out for all.
But we do see NIMBYism still in certain locations for whatever reason it may be. And hence a lot of the spread to places where they're welcoming it, like you said.
So SMRs.
Yeah.
You knew I was going to go there. So SMRs, regulatory concerns, safety concerns. How are they going to change kind of the hyperscale side of this?
So it's getting a lot of press. And to be quite honest, I haven't seen it actually take place stateside yet, despite various.
You haven't seen it take place stateside yet?
Yes. I know one of our affiliates has got the first in North America up in Ontario. But I think the hot topic around SMRs is we don't have capacity. We do have to start thinking microgrids and how do we keep up with supply, and the environmental side of it, the low carbon solutions. SMRs have been tested. They've been used in submarines in Paris and countries outside knock on mic. It's one of these things that it seems to be the right solution, but the fear, the regulatory side of things has caused a delay on people adopting it.
So we're seeing this happen. You said Ontario, Paris, is that correct?
So for France, traditionally uses a lot of nuclear. We have just done one in Ontario.
Okay.
What we are seeing is people are very excited about it, especially in the data center spaces. People are wanting to take control of their own supply. However, the regulation, from what I gather, it's between 5 and 10 years away yet.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Which is a million lifetimes in this sector.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
But also, we also see things where people put guesses on things and all of a sudden they're accelerated because of the need for demand. And I would agree with Chris. That's what we're hearing, but it could be, who knows? All it needs is the right person at the right time to understand the need for it. Because I think you'll agree, it's inevitable.
right.
It's just a matter of when.
So talking about demand, how sustainable is it in this sector? And, the likelihood of someone, the right place, the right time, the right brain power, the right idea, coming up with something, like these large language models that take a fraction of the power. What do we think about how rapid this growth is? And
I don't think we're even at the halfway point. I mean, everyone's still going to be using their phones. Everyone is still going to be using AI. And I think that the adoption of things like AI is just getting started. So I don't see an end right now in terms of the growth. I don't know if you want to try to peg it.
No, I don't. I know that we have NVIDIA coming out saying there's going to be $1 trillion of infrastructure investment just to sort of facilitate this.
$1 trillion of investment just to get, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But as you say, with more people adopting AI, with more creative startups coming into the scene, with robotics, with self-driving cars, and the need for inference, I think it's just going to continue to boom.
Yeah. Yeah. Agents are starting to come into play. People are starting to piggyback off of the infrastructure. It's just, I think it's just getting started.
Just getting started.
Yeah.
So talking about the gold rush and innovations, what innovations are there in terms of liquid cooling? Is that still providing the most effective for this high density computing? What are you guys seeing on that type of the innovation front?
So liquid cooling has been around for a long time. It was always a question about how it was going to get adopted or why. And the need for sort of this higher compute, higher density has been the push. There was...
So that's what you're saying is kind of put it in action.
Yeah. So you've went from traditional sort of air-cooled facilities to a hybrid solution where people are almost testing it and working it out to almost fully liquid-cooled solutions. I don't know what the next one's going to be, but yeah, at the moment we are seeing across the board liquid cooling's here to stay.
And in terms of innovation, I think we're We see it a lot too on the power generation side, where people are getting very creative in terms of utilizing natural resources. We're looking at one that has a gas deposit underneath it, and instead of trying to tap the grid, they're trying to see how they can create their own microgrid in and of themselves. And I think innovation is at every level. In building materials with low carbon concrete. Because I think sustainability is always in the back of everyone's mind with these things.
Right.
So every corner you can touch that makes it a little bit better. The whole as a whole is being impacted.
So with PUE metrics, what should stakeholders be looking at right now in regards to that?
I'll let you touch that one.
So I feel like let's take a step back rather than going into the individual metrics, but
Yeah.
talk about the sustainability goals, because
Right.
it is like recognized that we all have to be more sustainable.
Right.
There are commitments from hyperscalers to the developers on water, on carbon, etc. And it is part of the design that's being considered.
Okay.
Whether it is priority number one in a race to capacity and land, I won't say, but
Yeah.
what I will say is we all are pushing forward to try and be better. So what we've seen is, yes, PU definitely came down. There was more efficiency, etc. And then you have the side of, say, water and closed loop systems, etc. People are getting creative. Designs are getting better.
Mm-hmm.
We are pushing forward.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, personally, I think sustainability is taking a little bit of a backseat.
Okay.
Not that anyone will admit to it.
It might be taking a little bit of a backseat, but renewable energy and the integration of it, solar, air cooling, it has to be still somewhat important.
Oh no, it definitely is.
Okay.
Yeah. There's commitments and goals being set that everyone's pushing towards. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said before, I think they're coming at it from all different angles. Sustainable doesn't just have to be on the cooling side. It could be on, in many different ways, from site location to building materials to.
And not only that, we're seeing that as we've advanced with technology, renewables are becoming more viable.
Absolutely.
Right. So
The technology is getting better on solar.
Yeah. 8 years ago, you couldn't have had a secure supply from solar energy, but with battery solutions and
Now you
storage,
can.
etc., you can smooth out that, and it works.
Wind is also being utilized, in the Midwest. So yeah, there's all different ways to go about sustainability.
And I'm assuming that can help ease these tensions between grid stability concerns with the expansion of the power needs.
Yeah, absolutely. We see it maybe not necessarily sometimes as a primary source, but data centers operate 24/7. So you can use it to shed load. There's a lot of different ways you can go about it. I don't think it's the primary solution right now from a power perspective, but it definitely is helping.
Okay. And so then beyond in the SMR world, is there any emerging technologies you guys are kind of keeping your eyes on and strategies that might help in this next decade of the big energy needs?
Yeah, I think on the SMR side, I'm just trying to learn as much as possible right now.
Right.
Okay. We have an energy department that's teaching me a lot.
A really good energy department.
Yeah. And obviously, our Canadian counterparts have done that first one. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can and keeping an eye on some of the agreements being put in place with these companies.
How they've handled it.
And the data center companies. So we can try and understand what's in the future, how we're going to adapt the design, other considerations we need to think about as well.
Yeah.
And I think we touched upon it earlier too, just the other aspects of it, the non-nuclear solutions, whether it's natural gas, hydrogen, these things have all existed forever, but the technologies around them are getting better and better.
Mm-hmm. So we've touched on design shifts and changes. Are there any other shifts in the industry you're seeing right now that we need to keep our eyes on?
Well, I think the first one is going to be the shifting business of the development space.
Okay.
Where it used to be colo cages providing multiple end user space, it's almost like an overflow for the hyperscalers at the moment. You have a lot of the big developers doing the shell and core and then doing a full fit out for one client. And we're supporting them from both ends, how the bill's going up and then how they're managing that upstream as well.
Okay.
Which is interesting. And then obviously modular is still a hot topic from speed to market side of things, but also creativity. I know there's a couple of people adapting for, okay, if data centers had to move for edge space, for military uses, etc.
Yes.
So we're seeing it from straight up construction, speed to market, high quality, reducing the labor needs on site from a health and safety aspect to how quality the build can be. On the flip side, you also then have, okay, how creative do we have to be with modular?
Okay. Before I let you guys go, we've talked a lot about these energy needs and workforce, location. What are some of the other challenges you guys are seeing in this space? Any hot spots you're keeping your eye on? Kind of what do you think for these stakeholders in this space really need to kind of be aware of or kind of start thinking about?
The supply chain, I don't think, is getting any better.
No.
Unfortunately, just with the amount of demand going on, especially with some of the larger hyperscalers doing, a lot of building,
Yeah.
they are taking up a lot of the equipment needs.
Hyperscalers are being selfish with the workforce.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, listen, these year plus lead times that we're getting quoted and hearing are really not coming down.
Year plus for the workforce?
For generators, for air handlers, switchgear.
Yeah.
And then, the workforce we touched upon. But like I said, I don't see supply chain easing in the near future.
No, and I think, honestly, the workforce piece is
it's
the one
a
that
huge part to it.
doesn't get enough press because we're seeing it from providing labor to remote sites. We're also seeing a pull from other regions and other sectors, right? You have LA is a great example, right? The workforce required for that sort of
the rebuild.
Yeah. But then you also have, even on the vendor side and the owner side, the ability or the inability to staff. So that's
on the
where,
vendor and owner side. Ability to staff.
Everyone's trying to scale as fast as possible to keep up with the demand. And it's not just the buildings, it's the actual intellectual capability.
Right. Yeah, we just look at the front end of it. There's a whole operating side to a data center that we don't necessarily get involved in as much. But to Chris's point, the owners are trying to find capable people of, running data centers that
have the knowledge base.
That, if something goes wrong, they know how to address it. The downtimes on a lot of these are, they're not very tolerant for any downtime. So to Chris's point, there's a whole other side of it too that's also having trouble.
Even up front, like if you think about it, some of our clients are the smartest people I've ever worked with.
Absolutely.
But they don't actually have enough hours in the day to do it. So that's where they lean on the likes of ourselves, et cetera, to support them.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, the people that we work with in the data center sector are the best in the business.
Brilliant, yes.
And we're not necessarily here to say that, we're smarter. We're just trying to match them and help them scale
and
at a pace that the industry is still going at.
Because you can't expect anyone to keep up with this pace.
No.
Yeah. Well, that might be a good way to end it. We just, we'll keep our eye on it. And I think we'll be meeting back here with the two of you very soon, because I tell you what, in our comments, it was asked for quite a bit to start going into this topic. So
happy to do it.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. And
thanks for having us.
Thank you, Fair.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Construction Insiders podcast. You can continue the conversation by leaving a comment, asking a question, or participating in our poll. You can also visit us at coming-group.com for more great resources from the most trusted team in the built environment. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on our latest episodes.